Texas Tech football is one win away from bowl eligibility as they beat the Kansas Jayhawks 43-28. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm RC Maxwell here for the Back to 12 podcast, reminding you to be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video if you haven't already. Let's jump into this game recap, though, as Tyler Shough got the start for Texas Tech, and this was the Tyler Shough that was advertised when he transferred in from Oregon. He was absolutely phenomenal. But before we talk about him as well, we have to give credit to a couple of position groups as well as a coach that I'll admit I've been pretty hard on so far this season. I thought the Tech offensive line played really, really well today. Arguably their best effort of the season, maybe outside of the West Virginia game. I thought the running backs were phenomenal as well, not only running the football where they averaged over 6 yards a carry, but also in pass protection. And then last but not least, I was super critical of him last week. If you listen to the podcast, Zach Kittley, man, this is what we expected from Zach Kittley. And you don't need to see it every week, right? Like, there's going to be times where Zach Kittley struggles just because that's the name of the game. You're never going to bat 1,000. There's that old saying in baseball, if you hit 30% of the time, you go to the Hall of Fame, right? Like, obviously you want him to be a little bit better than that in football, but he was creative. He was timely. Outside of really a drive here and there in the third quarter, I thought he was really phenomenal in terms of putting Tyler Shough in a place to succeed and actually getting some wide receiver space. I thought he was great. But let's talk about Tyler Shough, who went 20 for 33, 246 yards and a touchdown, and also led the Red Raiders in rushing with 76 yards and a touchdown. When I say this is the Tyler Shough we expected from Oregon, I truly mean it. He looked like a completely different guy in this game because you look at what he looked like against TCU just a week ago, and the ball was kind of fluttering. There was no zip on it. And for those that don't know what zip means, it's just there was no velocity behind it. It seemed like it took forever to get there. That's not the case this week against Kansas. You could tell that he was there, he was engaged, and he had all kinds of zip behind the ball every time he threw the football. And one that really stood out to me in terms of the zip that he had was a play to Xavier White that ended up going for 47 yards, where unfortunately Texas Tech didn't get a touchdown. They settled for a field goal, but hey, the end of the day, you got a W. Doesn't matter, right? But he stepped up in the pocket a couple of times, went to his left in the pocket, took a step up, took another step up, and threw an absolute dart to Xavier White where he hit him right in stride. Xavier White was off to the races. Unfortunately, he got caught. But that's the kind of throw that I was expecting from Tyler Shough when he stepped foot on Texas Tech campus. And we really haven't seen that yet, mostly because of injuries. But even when he's been in the game, it didn't feel like there was a lot of zip behind the ball. And you can't say that anymore. And now I want to ask you guys this in the comments. So be sure to go down to the comments and answer this question. Who's quarterback one if Behren Morton is healthy? Type B for Behren Morton or T for Tyler Shough? I think it might be closer than people think because, listen, Behren Morton has had 2 ankle injuries to the same ankle this year. Maybe they're super cautious with him. And listen, if Tyler Shough is going to play close to this level or at this level for the remainder of the year, you've got a really good shot to go bowling if you're the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, as for the defensive side of the football, it wasn't phenomenal. You averaged or gave up 7.6 yards a carry. I was saying in my Twitter spaces after the game that if I was Kansas, I just would have ran the football every play. Like Texas Tech, the defensive line just felt like there was a bit of a letdown after Tyree Wilson left the game. He returned to the sideline in a walking boot in crutches. Joey McGuire post-game already said that Tyree Wilson will not play against Iowa State. And if you ask me for my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, I would be pretty surprised if we see Tyree Wilson ever suit up in the scarlet and black again. He's done a phenomenal job this season. I want him to be safe and take care of his family more than anything when it comes down to it. We're talking about a guy that is a first-round caliber NFL pick. Go get your millions, young man. Set your family up for life and make sure that you're okay. Texas Tech and Red Raider Nation is right behind you in that regard because, I mean, he's been phenomenal this year, and it sucks that it may end this way for him. But overall, the long-term game and him setting up his family for generations is really what it's all about. But when we talk about the Texas Tech defense, right, Kershaw Merriweather led the way with 9 tackles, but Josiah Pierre, I thought, was absolutely phenomenal in this game. 7 total tackles, 2 sacks. Then you had Rabbit, who should have had a pick earlier in the game. Unfortunately, didn't hold on to the football, but he had 3 pass breakups. And then you got J.A., who replaced Tyree Wilson on the defensive line. A true freshman. J.A. is one of those guys where he is going to make a true impact on the defensive line for Texas Tech for years to come. And listen, there's a steep drop-off from Tyree Wilson to J.A. No doubt about it. But when you look at the defensive line and what they did after Tyree Wilson left, you could tell that they rallied around it. They wanted to make him proud. And again, it sucks that Tyree left in the fashion that he did. But I think this Texas Tech defense had a wake-up call after that, where they really were just stingy. They were really, really stingy. When you look at what they did in this game, they gave up a total of 7 points in the second half. Really good adjustments by Tim DeRuyter and crew defensively. And listen, you got 2 turnovers. When Texas Tech wins the turnover battle, they win football games. It's honestly that simple. Not to mention this. Well, I want to switch back to the offense where they ran the football. And that's something that a lot of Texas Tech fans have been preaching this week. I've seen it all over social media. And I couldn't agree more in the sense that, hey, you need to get to a certain benchmark when it comes to rushing attempts. You got too much talent in the backfield not to utilize them at least a certain amount of times. For me, I want to see them touch the ball at least 38 times, all 3 of them combined. That's Taj Brooks, SaRodorick Thompson, who is now in the top 10 of rushing yards ever. It's a program for Texas Tech. So congratulations to him. But you got to get Cameron Valdez involved too. If we're strictly talking talent, maybe it's too early for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Strictly talking talent, Cameron Valdez is the most talented running back Texas Tech has. And yeah, some people might take offense to that. I think it's pretty clear when it comes to what he does and the explosiveness. That's not to say that Taj Brooks isn't good. That's not to say SaRodorick Thompson isn't good. I think Texas Tech is in a very luxurious spot right now when it comes to the depth that they have at the running back position. Now, I also wanted to give some credit to the tight ends in this one who played really well. I thought they could have actually had 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Donovan Smith overthrew Mason Tharp, which is hard to do in the red zone, but Mason Tharp ended up getting his touchdown pass from Tyler Shough instead, the lone touchdown pass of the game for the Red Raiders. But overall, I thought the tight ends played great in all facets of the game. They were utilized as extra offensive linemen as well in this one, as we've grown accustomed to seeing. But the unit that kind of surprised me the most, and maybe it was just Tyler Shough being at quarterback, was the wide receivers. A lot more space out there. Loic Fouonji, him and Tyler Shough have a good connection, and now Loic Fouonji did have a couple of drops. But overall, I thought Loic looked really, really good on the outside. Had 8 targets, caught 5 of them for over 50 yards. Looked really solid to me. And now you go up to Ames. This is where things get interesting for the Red Raiders. Lay of the land now after this 43-28 win against the Kansas Jayhawks. It's just this. You got to win one more game to get bowl eligible. Does Texas Tech do it? Let me know in the comments. You face off against the Cyclones in Ames. You face off against the Sooners of Oklahoma at home on Thanksgiving weekend. Do the Red Raiders win one more game on their schedule? It'll be a night game out in Ames. Never an easy place to play, Ames, regardless of if it's at night. You can guarantee that's going to be a blackout up in Iowa. But does Texas Tech win one of those final 2 games? Type Y for yes or in for no down in the comments. One more reminder. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech athletics all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.